Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, chapter 130. When we last left our heroes, we had kind of an epilogue to the whole Foresta arc. We opened with a kind of debriefing meeting between the Eden Zero crew and Elsie's crew, as they discussed Justice and Ziggy and everything that happened this whole arc. We learned that Laguna has some kind of secret goal. Don't have a lot of info on what that might be. Meanwhile, Couchpo and Moscow became friends. Witch and Aruna, the girl that Rebecca rescued, had a bonding moment. Maybe Aruna will join the crew, as she has no family. Who knows? We get some info about Xenolith, that he has some kind of mission he needs from Shiki. And then we get the real feel-good meat of the chapter, Clean getting her smile back. And yeah. With that said, let's jump right on into Chapter 130, Ocean 6. Our picture here is of Rebecca in, like, what I think is a maid outfit, but not quite a maid outfit. Cat ears, she got Happy next to her, is kind of very, very femme room. Ocean 6, which is obviously referring to the team that ranked above Beast, that I think Creed mentioned, a while back. But we open with the Interstellar Union Army commando carrier, Angel Feather. As we see Creed just like fawning on his cell phone, looking at pictures of Homura. Which is a choice, I guess. And Victory looks at him, watching dirty videos when you're supposed to be on the job, Creed. And Creed looks at him, no, I'm not. I was just analyzing the crew of the Eden Zero. Yeah, sure. You were analyzing one of them, alright. And then Victory takes a swig of milk, thankfully labeled milk. Don't bother. Compared to Elsie and Nero, they're barely a threat. But the more I learn about them, the more mysteries I find. And Victory kind of like leans over for more info. Really? Let me see. Rebecca, a beekeeper? Never heard of her. Wise, a guy from 50 years in the past? Miniature androids. 3 androids that used to work for Ziggy. And what is this? At Moscow. I love that Moscow is just, what even is that? What is that guy? Finally, Shiki, the kid who inherited Ziggy's power. I agree they're a weird bunch. We don't have time to bother with them. And Creed just says, yes, sir. Interestingly, Homura is not really a part of that. Which, like, given that they know about Wise's deal, I figure they'd at least know that Homura is the daughter of Madame Kurenai. Maybe. I don't know. I guess not, though. I agree they're a weird bunch, but we don't have time to bother with them. Yes, sir. Nero and Elsie, 2 of the Erasion Seis Galactica, are here in the outer cosmos. Not to mention Ziggy. I just hope this doesn't turn into anything too catastrophic. And we cut to Justice, who is bandaged up from his fight with Elsie, and just like, not really relaxing in his chair, but basically relaxing. As he gets he has a video chat from Holy, I think was her name, the girl who reminded me of Camelot from Fire Emblem. Nero's top officials assembled. Let me try again. Nero's top officials assembled on the planet Nero 1, also known as the Temple. The Oceans? Justice asks. Yes, and his twisted deadbeat son, too. I don't care about him. You should. He could be a real threat. Nero is old. Once he dies, Shura will take over. Now is our chance to destroy him. If we don't, the Aoi Cosmos will suffer for it later. With men like him, there's no telling what they'll do once they get real power. Okay, so it looks like Shura is going to be taking a bigger role going forward. I was kind of cold on Shura in his first appearance. He was just kind of a generic douchebag. Just like darker than your normal generic douchebag, but like functionally kind of your general generic douchebag. Though maybe he will surprise me. And then we cut back to Holy, who's in some kind of bar of some kind. In any case, there are far too many big fish in the Aoi Cosmos. You won't be able to handle them all on your own. Jaguar and Eraser are on their way. Let them help you. And Justice asks, and you're not going to do anything, Holy? No. I have other fish to fry. And given the next panel involves the general Aoi Cosmos theme of the fish swimming in the stream, I'm curious if that's going to lead into anything. I'm curious what her goal is. She clearly has something she's doing. And if each Interstellar member is paired with a specific Galactica member, who knows? Though again, we don't know enough about the other members of both Horacio and Saces to really have any kind of definitive reading of that, or if that's just Justice and Elsie thing. Anyway, the planet Nero 1, the temple, and we see is the city of what I'm guessing is the capital city of Nero 1. It's generally your kind of normal sci-fi city. There's some kind of weird floating structure up in the sky. Not quite sure what that's supposed to be. We also see 2 moons in the sky. We see what look like dragon statues in, I guess, the temple itself, and a door. And we see a kind of like frog-like hand rolling dice. It reminds me of kind of maybe Iliga species / whatever the frog things were in Fairy Tale. The ocean weeps. He rolls the dice. Though its tears be a drop of the blue cosmic sea, they will become a desolate darkness to reduce my flesh to ash. Member of Horacio and Saith Galactica, Emperor Poseidon Nero. And we see him in full. He has like kind of webbed ears, definitely not Iliga. Cancel that comparison. But like we see what would be a long beard is now tentacles. He's got hair that's kind of reminiscent of Draken's, except it's also tentacles. But like the long beard, if it were actual hair, would probably be, a signifier that he's an older man. I imagine it being like white if it were hair. Which would fit in with what Holy said about he's old and Shura will soon come to power. But either way, I'm curious about the decision to open with him rolling dice. Like, is that kind of... Like, I had the sense of Nero as being just constantly in control, which is the opposite of what the rolling of the dice would signify. That it's kind of a fate sort of thing. I don't know. But we see he's sitting with, I'm guessing the Oceans members, and says, Foresta has been violated at the hand of Demon King Ziggy. And Shura looks at him. Ziggy? And then a member of Ocean 6 named Callum Steelford responds, Who is Ziggy? Another member, Lyra, an old friend of His Imperial Majesty, and the person who gave Lord Shura his gravity powers. So that's interesting, for a second. Or let's stop there for a second. That Ziggy, prior to being corrupted by whatever corrupted him, was a friend of Nero. And that Ziggy, at the point where he was still the kind of person who Shiki could look up to as a grandfather, saw Shura as a potential disciple, or student, apprentice, there we go. Given what we know about Shura now, is kind of weird. I'm curious what changed there. Anyway, I'm going to describe Callum and Lyra real quick, because I forgot to do that. Callum is just kind of looks like a fairly standard knight. We see like he has kind of a shaved side to his hair. We see Lyra, she's dark-skinned, got two-tone hair, what looks white and black, I could see, but black and white, who knows what it actually is. Two-toned eyes, too, which probably matches with her hair. These, like, heart glasses up there, I kind of vibe with the heart glasses, not gonna lie. We see Nase, who has the sort of diagonal bangs going on, with a sort of, hair down to, like, here. Can't quite, I don't know what their gender is, so we'll see. Memory. Yes, if memory serves, Ziggy is a robot, and already deceased? There's an interesting thing. Or, sorry, not quite interesting yet. It's more, take note of memory. I imagine memory is going to be his thing. And then Nero looks out at them. He has returned to life. Has he lost his heart and become a cadaver of darkness to strike me down? And Shura just asks, but why would he do that? Why indeed? We see another member, Milani Lucra, who's we see she had like dark hair, covers one eye, fairly large earrings, sort of a very, at least revealing top. I don't know the rest of her outfit. It doesn't matter. Any violence performed in the Aoi cosmos is tantamount to rebellion against His Imperial Majesty. After all, such acts are far from beautiful. We see another member, Saika, who is a robot. As a fellow machine, I am ashamed of his behavior, baring his fangs against the great Nero Empire. Then we see another member, Fabiano, who is an older man, kind of also as a sort of old, like 17th century-ish noble is kind of the vibe I get from his outfit. Your Majesty, we should take him to war. For the people of Aoi, let us strike down the Demon King. But the one thing I am kind of curious about, though, is that with Beast, it's the lower numbers were stronger. Beast Team 6 were like around Eden Zero crew threat, while Beast 1 was fairly quickly handled by Victory, but it was a threat that Team 1 was here. So I'm curious, if this is following the same way, and that there are at least 5 more Oceans teams, why is Nero talking with one of the weaker teams? Unless, since we've seen 6 of them so far, maybe Ocean 6 here is in the same vibe as like Horacio and Sace or Element 4, where it's not their squad number, but like a number of how many there are on the team. Maybe. I don't know. And Nero just kind of stares silently before he drops the dice. I wish to know Ziggy's true intentions. He was once a wise, thoughtful man, a man I could call friend. What has happened to him? And then the dice continue to roll as Shura just smiles. Not those dice again, father. I don't see how you can leave these important decisions to chance. And Nero forcefully now, hold your tongue. And Shura's kind of stunned there. The eyes of my dice will never betray me. That is the power of my ether. It is with this power that I built this empire, in a single generation. That's interesting. His ether is like chance control, maybe? And these are my sacred guiding dice. And he looks down at them, and they are all ones. And he sees them. And Fabiano asks, and? What do their eyes tell you? And Nero gets up and walks away. I see. If that is our fate, I will obey. And the Ocean's members and Shura all object. Your Majesty, where are you going? I will do nothing. Okay. And everyone reacts. Callum is kind of frowns. Lyra is stunned. NASA kind of smiles. What was her name? Milani. Where was it? Milani's also just kind of silent there. Saika can't really read, given the whole robot thing. And Shura snaps, Father! Shura, my son, I leave the matter entirely in your hands. And Shura is kind of stunned for a minute before smiling. You better mean that, father. I am not so foolish as to defy the dice. And then we see Shura's inner thoughts. What's foolish, you stupid old man, is letting those ridiculous numbers order you around. Okay. Alright, I'm curious if, at a certain point, the dice will lead to an answer Shura doesn't want, which will lead to Shura rebelling against Nero, and how that will play out in the larger scale of the Aoi Cosmos saga. But that's all a question for another time. Anyway, after Nero leaves, Shura calls Ijuna, and a short-haired woman, who I guess is Ijuna, responds, Yes, sir. Command of Ocean 6 in regard to this situation has been transferred to Prince Shura, and we see that she's Shura's secretary. And Callum responds, I have no problem with that. And Lyra was her name, right? Where was it? Yeah, Lyra. Then responds, so I'm having to scroll back up and down to remember all these names. Go ahead and give us your orders, but if it's anything pervy, I'll pass. And Fabiano is just kind of silent there. And then Milani was her name? I know I already just checked her name again. Yeah, Milani. Milani says, what do you intend to do? And NASA, again with the memory, Yes, I will commit your voice to memory. And then Shura, holding the dice, or touching the six squared dice, do you even need to ask? And then he just crushes it down. I'm gonna squash Ziggy like a bug. He'll be nothing but a beat up pile of scrap metal. And then with that, we come to the Eden Zero. Having spent our time with the villains, let's go check in on the heroes before the chapter ends. And Xenolith is with, I think it's just the same people he was with last chapter. There's a reason that Ziggy specifically targeted Foresta. And Happy asks, because there were so many bots there? That is part of it. But I suspect he was really after me. And that kind of shocks Shiki. And Hermit kind of concurs, if you really are Xenolith, then that is a possibility. He fears me. And Shiki's just, well, duh. You taught him everything he knows. No, that's not quite accurate. I'm an old run-down machine now. I couldn't hold a candle to Ziggy in his current state. What he is truly afraid of is my encounter with you. He feared that I would make you stronger, and Xenolith kind of like stretches out his hand into a fist, and Shiki's shocked. What? I will grant you my power. Find Ziggy. And we see a shot of Shiki, Elsie, Shura, and then Ziggy, and defeat him. I love this final page. The way it kind of sets up the conflict for the rest of the saga, really. Shiki, the Eden Zero crew, the Skull Fairy crew, Oceans, and the Nero Empire, and the Eden's One crew. And not quite a four-way battle, given that Shiki and Elsie are very much allies, but at least a three-way battle. And I can't wait to see that. So yeah, let's dive into this chapter. It was a lot of fun. Very informative. Again, it looks like the Oceans are not a series of squads, like Beast was. It looks like they're just, like, the kind of standard, Mashima sub-bosses. Though, given the way the story is structured, maybe they're gonna be more like arch villains? Possibly? What I mean by Mashima standard is that, like, most fairy tale arcs have the structure of the main villain and then his numbered henchmen who all provide fights for the cast, right? And I could see Ocean 6 doing that. But it also looks like I said, as both Red Cave and Foresta kind of work as a prologue to this larger conflict with Nero, I could see them more pulling, not to throw out another shonen reference, but kind of to Baroque Works, maybe? How, the Straw Hats would run into one or two Baroque Works members on each island in the lead up to Alabasta, sometimes be done with them after that one arc, sometimes not. Or they could be more like, for another reference, Akatsuki members. How, similar to Baroque Works, Konoha would face them like one at a time, but then they just kind of be done after their one arc, for the most part. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that Ocean 6 could be done. I don't think they're going to be, your normal Element 4 type villains, at least. I think they're going to be more like fight them one at a time for a whole arc. Maybe they have their own squads. Possibly, maybe. But who knows? So yeah, this chapter is really the bulk of this chapter, as the title kind of implies, is introducing us to Oceans. Or at the very least, the inner workings of the Nero Empire. Because we don't really get a whole lot of info on them, this chapter. We just kind of see all their names and a little bit of their personalities, I guess. But more just their character designs. They're all very unique. Some of them are kind of, I'm trying to find the right word for it. They look like Majima characters. They're not like super out there. Which sounds like faint praise, but I don't know. The only one who instantly rubbed me the wrong way is NASA. Just because the character archetype of I have one thing and I will insert it into every conversation just bothers me so much. So the fact that like every line out of his mouth has something to do with memory, already not a fan of him. But he could get better as the story goes on. Something about Fabiano is just familiar to me. Maybe he reminds me of a council member in Fairy Tale. I don't know. I can't quite place it. Um, but the real important thing we get here is Nero's policy of decision by chance. Which leads to him doing nothing and leaving everything to Shura, however Shura chooses to do things, which could end up screwing him over in the end. We'll see. There are a lot of ways that storyline can go, but that's really the big thing we can get out of that scene with Nero, until the Ocean 6 members have time to really assert themselves as individual characters. And then we get kind of the scene that we all kind of figure would happen, is Xenolith promising to train Shiki. Which, like, as soon as Xenolith showed up, was kind of the obvious route to go. As he promises, that Shiki, he can help Shiki to defeat Ziggy. The one thing I am going to say, well, first, I'll get to that in a second. First, I forgot to talk about the IUA scene, which is really just letting us know that Jaguar and Eraser are coming, which is a fifth side in this conflict that the last page kind of teases, that there still is the army out there. But the last thing I want to bring up before I draw this video to an end is the way that this final page very much seems like a saga thing, for lack of a better term. Setting up the conflict for the saga, Shiki and Elsie versus Shura versus Ziggy versus, again, Justice, Jaguar, and Eraser in the background, but they're just not on this page for some reason. The problem is, it seemed to me like Ziggy was going to be a larger series villain, and not just a saga villain. And he probably still will, but this page's inclusion is just something to think about as we wait for next week. But yeah, all in all, this was a really fun chapter, setting up, letting us see our first taste of the main villains of this saga, the Ocean 6, and Shura, and Nero. I find Nero really interesting. I've said that from the beginning, but now that we see him in action, I think he's just really interesting. He has a great character design. I love the tentacle beard and hair, as long as it stays as beards and hair and not hentai shit, then we're golden there. But yeah, just gives us a lot to look forward to with the rest of the Aoi Cosmos saga. So, yeah, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. Do whatever makes you happy, And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!